Hello, my name is Chen Si and I'm resident of Block 4. This is my second year in Raffles and I'm the final year student in electrical engineering. So before I came to Raffles, I stayed in Raffles Hall in year 1, and subsequently I moved to Cork Foundation, and now that is known as Block 7 and 8. So Block 7 and 8 was absorbed into Raffles during at the end of my stay there, and that is partly the reason why I came to Raffles. And during that time, I was a friend of the media director back then, and she was looking for people who has experience in web design as well as router configuration, because those are the two things that the JCRC has planned to do for the IT related stuff for the subsequent year. So that's how I came in, because as an electrical engineering student, I have some experience playing with routers. I flash custom firmwares inside this, and yeah, it's just for leisure. So, but for web design, it's something that I wouldn't mind doing, and I have some exposure and background before coming to Raffles. But it's not something that's have too much expertise in. So after coming to Raffles, I have to basically pick up a lot of things on my own, and specifically on commotion. The year before I came, there was one guy in charge of commotion, and that is the only person in the CCA. He was the one in charge of all the IT systems, including the whole website, the R zone, and everything. But later in the year, I heard this person got into some unhappiness with the JCRC. That's why this person just left RH and disappeared ever since. So when I came, nothing was passed on to me. Not even a password to the server, not the database, not the code, nothing. So I have to find some way to take over the old R zone, revamp it into the form that we are all familiar with it today.
Everything from scratch, basically.
Yes, almost, but the code is more or less the same. Just the interface, the front end is something I kind of revamped completely. Yeah, so that's commotion. I think I've given an overview of what commotion does, and some people confuse it with tech team. I think it's just because of the name. Commotion was known as Computer Committee or ComCom in the past, and during that time, as far as I've read from the old year books, there was a computer room in where the alumni lounge now stands. So the inside was I believe some computers and a printer, and this ComCom used to manage everything there. So over the years, as facilities and RH evolved, we are now focusing solely on the websites, the IT system, as well as we maintain a media archive for media CCAs, including BOPs, the Phoenix Press, and Phoenix Studios. And on top of that, we handle the technical aspects of archive of the old media heritage of Raffles Hall. And that is in preparation of the 60th anniversary. It's going to happen next year. Okay. That's all for commotion.
Any interesting IT related or non-IT related stories in your time here?
IT related stories, okay. One of the more memorable things I did for commotion is a router configuration exercise that happened last year. So during that event, we asked our residents to bring down their routers and just queue up in comm hall. They put the routers there. We help them configure in accordance of what NUS Computer Center wants, basically involving security settings and making sure the router doesn't interfere with other computers in the network. But that is something extremely hectic. I just sit there for I think at least 3 hours yeah, during the dinner time, just because residents came non-stop, so I was configuring the routers one after one. That's one of the most exhausting experience I had in RH. So that's something related to IT. And on top of that, during the initial time I took over Commotion, the bulk of my work was on Azure, and that was during the CCA application period of last year. Last year was the first year that Co-Foundation merged with Raffles Hall, and during that time we had a lot more rooms than the previous year, and we have a lot more new residents basically. So the problem they face is that the quota they set for each CCA, that is every CCA can only accept the maximum number of members just due to resource allocation considerations. They have to change basically all the quota that was from the previous year, and all these settings have to be registered in the Azure system. So during the time, I basically worked very closely with the JCRC, and I know a lot of the inner workings of this entire process. I have to, at the end of every application cycle, I have to compile statistics about how many CCAs each residents have applied for, the success rates, and how many CCAs each resident got, because these are very important to ensure that every resident is actively involved in some activities during their whole life here. Yeah, that's something I consider quite memorable. And apart from that, in Block 4, last year, basically everyone in Block 4 called me Doraemon, and that's because whenever someone needs to borrow something in the block chat, I was always there to respond, and it seemed to them that I have everything in my room. So yeah, that's partly because of my interest, because I chose my course out of passion. It's just electrical engineering is something that I'm very passionate about since a very young age. So in my room I have everything you could probably find in the EE lab. I even have all the screwdrivers, soldering station, even an oscilloscope. Yeah. So and during that year didn't take a lot of MCs in the year, so I spent most of the time in my room doing my stuff, and that's why I could lend my stuff to my neighbors in Block 4. There's something that's interesting that I was saying last year.
What was your any memorable experiences in this hall?
Yeah, I think those things I mentioned just now are pretty memorable. And okay, during Block 4 there was once this BME student was working on a BME project, but she just couldn't get the circuit to work. So and deadline was the next day. So she basically we spent a lot of time, she and her group mates, in my room, because I have many instruments and tools that you need to debug electrical circuits. So I spent quite long just debugging circuits, and there were electronic components everywhere in my room, so it looks like a lab. That's pretty interesting and pretty memorable, I consider.
Anything you have that you like about Raffles Hall?
Okay, Raffles Hall, if you consider all the halls in NUS, every hall is unique in some sense. So if you talk about Shears and KR especially, they're basically very high entropy places. And if you talk about KR, they're especially known as for the kind of Rabac kind of environment. And if you talk about Yusof and Temasek, probably there's about the sports, the athletics. And KE, probably people probably think of medical students among us. But in RH, besides RH and P and culture, is nothing that really stands out, and it's not something to a lot of people. This is not something that's attractive about a hall. Yeah, but to me is that's one of the unique things about RH is if you look at all the CCAs, especially the sports, they don't require any prior experience, and even the culture is they basically welcome anyone with experience in getting some exposure. So I think that's a good thing about RH. So it encourages you to
Get out of your comfort zone and explore.
yes, get out of your comfort zone. Whatever interest you have, you just join the activity and get some exposure. And that's what makes the hall life fulfilling.
Anything you like to say to the freshmen or the hall population in general?
I think that's yeah, my response to this will be quite similar to question 6, because RH is a place and doesn't set a lot of restrictions on what you can do. All the CCAs they have pretty low barrier to entry. So especially if you are in year 1, you don't worry too much about grades. It's just treasure your time here. Try to whatever interest, just take up as many activities you are comfortable with, and have a memorable time in Raffles.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.